Roger joined Waka Kotahi New Zealand Transport Agency as the Bay of Plenty System Manager in September 2021. That's not that long ago. This change has enabled him to return to an operational role where he can combine his passion for activity management and empower people. Roger is an enthusiastic member of the Roading Efficiency Group, whānau, and for the last couple of years has chaired the Sector Excellence Working Group. Fantastic. Also, Jeremy. Now, I've just spoken to Jeremy earlier. He's a man, and apparently, well, not apparently, we did a radio show back in 1992. I used to be on radio, and we were into disco music. We were into flares. We were into real musicians that played their own instruments. We were into everything, actually. But it's all coming back to me now. I don't know if I'm enjoying them. No, it's great. But Jeremy is a co-founder and director of software specialist company X. Jeremy has more than 38 years experience in IT development, consulting, delivering high quality software. Jeremy has a track record of delivering industry-wide efficiency gains through the application of IT processes and technologies. Jeremy is a University of Waikato graduate with a Bachelor of Management Studies degree, and he loves real music from the 70s, like the Eagles and the Doobie Brothers. I just put that in there, bro, because it's the truth. Okay, so guys, it's over to you. Come on up.
Thank you, Pierre. Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Roger ahau. I've taken Pierre's challenge and stood on the stage and 2 hours to come out of my mouth, so that's a first. Well done. Suzanne said that the magic happens outside your comfort zone. Well, I bloody well hope so, because I'm well outside my comfort zone now. However, here we are, and it's an absolute pleasure to be here. I listened to the speakers yesterday, I've listened to the speakers today, and whilst among exalted company that I probably don't deserve to be in, it did really make me think. And it in fact caused me to spend some of last night looking firmly into a mirror and saying, you know, what can I be more accountable for, and what are my truths from the last couple of days? So I thought I'd start by sharing my why, which was Priyani's start yesterday and really got me thinking. So my why on reflection is thinking about our Maori brothers and the culture, the concept of Papatua Nuku, the Earth Mother. That's not a concept that's exclusive to Maori. It also made me think about Gaia, the Earth Mother from Greek mythology, Terra Mater from the Romans, and also think about the Buddhist faith. I would question that there's so many wonderful speakers here from Sri Lanka, and I would ask are we in fact all as humans connected to Mother Earth? And is Mother Earth perhaps a little angry with us? So I would put it out there that we need to think about this, we need to listen. As Tien said, the cycle of life is really interesting, different culture, different concept. And that led to my final reflection, that to really understand the culture, we need to understand their language. So I'm going to embrace and learn Te Reo, the same way that I lived in South Africa, I embraced and learned Afrikaans, gave me a much more colourful and rich understanding of the people of the country. So those are my reflections from the first day. What I might also add is that there has been a little bit of doom and gloom. Well, I can tell you that my glass is more than half full, and I believe that we can do this. And this is the challenge that we're going to be putting out during the course of our address to you this afternoon. So Jeremy, over to you.
Tēnā koutou katoa. And thank you, Roger, and thank you, Pio. Pio, you mentioned at the very beginning of the conference yesterday how sometimes when you're listening to these overachieving bios, it makes you feel stink. And listening to that bio, and listening to you say it, actually makes me feel fantastic. It's a refreshing change, people, because I've got 2 teenage twin boys at home, and they always tell me, oh, Dad, you don't get it. You're so old, you're really dumb, you're crusty, and you suck. And so it's quite refreshing to hear, something quite different. So why am I here? I've been writing software for this industry for a long time, 38 years. Probably the most relevant 10 years of that is in the 90s, actually writing RAM. And while I was writing RAM, I was asked to review the system for surfaces. And it was at that time that we introduced surface structure to RAM. And then following that led on to a review of the system for pavements and pavement layers. And that's when we introduced pavement structure to RAM. And so I was very happy to see the other day the latest version of RAM, the HTML version of RAM, has a wonderfully rendered surface structure here and stacked underneath that the pavement structure. And for me, it's fantastic to see something that I introduced 2.5 decades ago still being used on a day-to-day basis. And, looking at some of the conversations we've had in the last couple of days, there's a lot of challenges to go outside your comfort zone and do new things. And I want to point out that, when we did that, it was a new thing. And now it's just plain sailing every day. So, you take it on, you get used to it, and it becomes completely normal. Now, more recently, I've been involved since 2015, leading the team at Company-X and working very closely with the Road Efficiency Group. And so we've built the Reg Insights tool. We've done 51 releases into that tool, and I want to thank everybody in this room. We've had fantastic feedback all the way along, and that's enabled us to incorporate that feedback, take it on, and then put out new releases that give you new features to use. And it's really been a journey, and it's been a partnership with everybody in this room. So I want to thank you for that. Now, another passion of mine, which has actually been going longer than the software one, is this. So I've been surfing for 50 years. This is 1970, taken with a Kodak Instamatic camera. Anyone know what that is? There's a couple, thank you. Right, so it's not digital 4K, right? But it's all blurry because I'm going so fast. Now, there's something that I learnt from surfing that I feel is very relevant to this talk. It's very relevant to this conference, and the last couple of days has really confirmed that. And it's really relevant to the sector right now. And it was the first morning of a surfing and sailing trip I did about 10 years ago. And the first morning we woke up and we looked across the lagoon to the coral reef just off the Whakarawa atoll, and I'm trying to be careful with my pronunciation. That was Whakarawa atoll, and that is in the Tuamotu atolls, 2 days sailing east of Tahiti. And so we got up in the morning, we looked across the reef, and there was wonderful waves peeling in, whereas the night before it was dead flat. And we were like, oh. But there we were, there was amazing waves. So I was there with my brother-in-law, Nick, and Tim, the two Tims, and we were all pretty excited. The surf is on. So we jumped in the tender, the dinghy thing, right? And we motored out to get a lot closer to the waves along the reef path. And when we got out there, when we first looked, there were nice but small waves. And as we got out there, we started to realise they were a bit bigger. And so when we got there, we said, okay, let's go. Well, the two Tims, Tim Id, they did not like the look of this, so they pulled the pin. And Nick and I, we got all our gears on, we jumped in, and we paddled over to the reef pass, something like that. And we thought, okay, we're in about the right spot. This is going to be amazing. We've got surf, it's beautiful, it's clear water, very sharp coral, and we're in boardies, but it's going to be amazing. And at that point, the horizon just kind of went up a level. And me and Nick realised that there was a set of waves coming, and we were totally in the wrong spot. We were about to get smashed, and it was absolutely time to panic, right? I was just looking at it going, oh, no, 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 no. And so if we didn't get out of there, we're going to get dragged back over the coral like cheese through a cheese grater. So off we go. Yeah, let's get out of here. Yeah, this is going to be really bad. And then I look up, hoping that we've got far enough out that it's going to be okay. And I look up, and the first wave is going over and coming down. And it's like, too late. And there's an explosion of white water. And I'm going, oh, no, no, no. Anyway, the only thing to do at that point, any surfers in the room? Not many, okay. So the only thing to do at that point is what you've done when you've been at the beach and you're facing a dumper, right? So you dive under, and if it all works out, you kind of get sucked under it and you just pop out the back like magic. So that's what we were trying to do. So I'm paddling as fast as I can and then duck the board under and try and get under this wave. And it kind of worked. I came out the back, but I was getting sucked backwards towards the reef, of course. I'm paddling forwards, but I'm getting sucked backwards. But that's okay. And then the next wave's coming, and I'm like, okay, keep going. You just got to keep going. And hoping that I can get a little bit further out. And to that second one, I did. So I was paddling like crazy, and then this wave started to pitch out over my head. But at least I wasn't going to get smashed by it. And so I was doing something like that, right? And just sort of getting through the top of it, and then had to paddle down the other side. You know, they're not little ones, you're actually paddling down it. And I'm paddling down that, looking at the third wave, which is exactly the same size. And I'm going, oh, we might be okay. We just might be okay. Paddling, looking at it, oh, I think I'm going to make it. And then it didn't pitch out over my head. We had got far enough out. It was okay. Nick was right beside me. And just as I get to the base of this wave and thinking, oh, I'm going to be all right, and I had this inconvenient intrusion into my panic. And the inconvenient intrusion was the insight that this wave was exactly what I came to the Tuamotu atolls for. And it was big, and it was way outside my comfort zone. But here it was. And we planned this whole trip to come to the Tuamotu atolls so we could get away from everybody, and there was no one to compete with, and hoping perfect waves were coming. And here it was. And I guess also, I'd been surfing for 40 years at that time, and here it was, the wave of my life. And I'm about to paddle over it. And I'm like, I can't do that. And so that was the point where, you know, I was in the right place at the right time, and I'd done all the training, and this was my moment. Am I going to just paddle over it? Or am I going to stop, take on that challenge, turn, which I did, right? So I went, I have no choice. I have to do this. So I turned, and 100% off I went. Yeah. Nick looked at me like I was a lunatic who'd adopted a death wish. But my point is, you know, surfing and life, and we have challenges in life as well. And there's challenges for this sector right now. There's so many challenges that we're talked about in the last few days. And, you know, it's important to recognise that moment rather than just paddle over it. You know, it's very easy to just paddle over it, but yeah. So that's I think the reason I wanted to raise this story today is there are moments when you need to recognise that's a challenge for you, and to actually say, well, I'm the one in the right place at the right time to take it on. Roger.
Jeremy, I have a question for you. How did you feel when you caught that wave?
So there was kind of 3 phases to that. I was kind of...
I think I can guess one of them.
when I had the realisation that this was it, I was kind of peeved. It's like, oh my God, really? And so terrified. Yeah.
Got that one.
Yeah. And then the decision to take it, and turn, and that was like total focus, 110%. Yeah. And then afterwards, just so elated to have taken on that challenge and give it a crack.
Thank you, Jeremy. I hope that we're all going to feel so elated when we leave this conference, because there's been a significant challenge put out there. Hey, but if Jeremy can do it, we can do it, right? I guess the challenge that we have is we are living on this planet as if we had another one to go to. And I don't believe that we have, so we'd better take good care of it. I'm just going to run through, I guess, a bit of a summary of what we've heard, as is typical at the end of the couple of days. So we talked about mitigation and adaptation. I think we're all pretty much aware that those are the 2 challenges we need to think about. We've also heard some wonderful information papers about what are emissions, how do they work. You know, Ian's comments just prior to this, great agitating comments, which I think are guaranteed to get people thinking, which again is the point. We did touch on the emissions for construction. You know, we talked about asphalt, for instance, being 28%, 18% concrete. I know this is an American model, but hey, we'll let them off with this one. What I did want to talk about briefly was the management and the leadership challenge. Now, you may recall this morning when Suzanne said, put your hand up if you're going to take action or if you're aware. And she said, who's the leader? And I looked around the room, I was the only person with my hand up. And I didn't plan it that way, and I kind of felt embarrassed. But let me tell you that there's people in this room that I know really well. And you are undoubtedly leaders. Yeah, I'm not going to call you out, I'm not going to name you, but you know who you are. I would go so far as to say that everybody in this room is in fact a leader. Just to pluck out a couple of these actions that leaders take. People-oriented. Anybody in this room people-oriented? No, come on, you've got to be kidding me. Okay, doing the right things. Yeah, maybe a few hands going up there. Inspirational and visionary. I'll just put the spotlight on Tony. That's Tony over there. I find Tony inspirational and a visionary. 10 years of Reg, he inspires me every time I meet him. And he's going to blush now. Listens and empowers. You know, I believe those who speak the least hear the most. I'm not one of those people, unfortunately, but I'm glad that there are people like this in the room. Thank you. Emotional intelligence. I think mine's just crawling out of the primordial sludge, but I'm getting there, right? You know, people like Suzanne, you know, Bridget yesterday. I mean, she certainly stimulated my thought process, whether I liked it or not. You know, that goldfish tank she talked about. I have 5 children and 10 grandchildren. I'd better get cleaning that tank out, right? Because I've put a lot of fish in it. Hey, you really got my attention. All right. Leads through others. I just want to dive into that one a little bit. I think a lot of people didn't put their hand up for being leaders yesterday because you interpret a leader as being the person out the front waving their arms around, making all the noise. You know, the sort of Winston Churchill type leader or the Gandhi type leader. There's way more to leadership. Hey, we can lead passively. There's the concept for you. If we actually create space people move into, is that not leadership? And some of those people that I haven't called out, but I might, how far will this go? That's what you do. I see it in action every day. Sorry, I pressed the wrong button. Okay. So I'm going to just do the hand up story because, Suzanne did. I think it's a really cool idea, but you got there first. Put your hand up if you empower people. There's quite a few hands going up there, not quite all of them, but a few nods with no hands. It's not hard, multitask. How many people here inspire people? Come on, Tony.
Yeah.
I've already told you that.
Sometimes.
There you go. That's more like it. How about have a shared vision? I think everybody can say that. Do you know RIMS is my favorite conference of the year? It's the one that I always want to get to because it's a family of like-minded people. Is it because we all care? Could it be that we're actually all connected in some way to the desire to help heal the earth? It may well be, although I believe that we have an intellectual cataract that stops us seeing that. Because we're so busy thinking about what we know, perhaps we've forgotten how we feel. And I believe that it's feeling that drives action and that intelligence is the action put into motion. So finally, does anybody here lead change? Absolutely. And the people that have been standing here over the last 2 days are undoubtedly leaders of change. I'm going to be a bit cheeky and give Pio a bit of his own medicine. Pio, I've seen you on TV. I've seen the way you talk to people. Pio, every time you speak to somebody, I see you making an effort to make them feel good, to leave something with them that will empower them. So, mate, you walk the walk, and that's why you're part of the RIMS family. Even though you're not an engineer, you're all good, mate. Okay, last thing before I give Jeremy the power back. Yeah, it's like having a TV remote. I'm not quite sure what to do with it. But thinking about leadership, you say 6 + 3 = 9, but so does 5 + 4. I think, again, it was Suzanne who's a lot of things stuck in my mind. We don't have to get it perfect, but we have to take action. And there is more than one way of doing it, right? For me, it's about respecting the views of other people. My truth may not be your truth, but please respect my truth, even if it's different. A great and learned man once said to me, all truth is an illusion. And I found that a little mind-bending. But I think what he actually meant is that your values and your worldview are based on your experience, and it may be different to mine, but rather than have a conflict about who's right, let's just look at doing the right thing. So I think, Jeremy, that's me for... actually, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. It got derailed.
There's no...
Thinking about doing things in different ways. Jeremy, who created RAM and a whole lot of software, is like a legend in the industry, although sometimes I want to kick him because I can't work out how RAM works. But that's probably operator error rather than the software, right? What would happen if a geeky software designer that wrote RAM was to design the Otira Viaduct? I'm going to hand over to Jeremy and let him tell you. There you go. Over to you, Jeremy.
So, Roger, when you first asked me that question and asked me to talk about that, I was like, okay, so, civil software, we both run important, significant projects. And so what is the key difference between a software project and a civil project? And I guess it came down to the fact that with software, we can change anything at any time. And so that changes everything. Because given that, we can start at the beginning and work our way to the end, or we can start at the end and work back to the beginning, or we can just do little pieces of the whole thing and then kind of build it up slowly from there. So I thought about the Otira Viaduct done by developer geeks, and I thought, well, we'd do what we want to do in software, and that's start with the area of highest risk. And quite often the area of highest risk is getting everyone in the project to understand what we want, right? So from the executive team and the management team and the developers and the users, get them all to agree what it is we're actually building. So in that case, I thought with Aotearoa Viaduct, what we'd do first is build the deck and the railings, right? Don't worry about the substructure or anything to start with, because we can do that later. And just hold it up with some skyhooks, right? I hear they're in scant supply.
Jeremy, the supply chain is impacted by COVID. No skyhooks, mate, sorry.
You'll just have to wait. And then we'd get some, you know, in software, we want people to use it and have a play with it and confirm that we're building the right thing. So we would get some cyclists to go along it, make sure it's okay, nobody's getting hit by rocks, the fall's about right. And then we'd go, with that feedback, we go, okay, we're all on track, everything's okay. Let's get some substructure in there, piles and pillars and abutments, etc. And we'd do it in a temporary way, of course. We'd get that stuff in there, and then we'd get some cars going along. So there's our first car through the viaduct, and again, get some more feedback from the users, make sure everything's fine. If that is, well, then we'd finish it, and we'd build all the substructure and the pillars and piles and hold it up properly, and then we can get vans and trucks going along it. So a little thought experiment, Roger. But that's a good example of exactly how we like to write software, because we can do it that way, and that's really how we've built Reg Insights. So there we go, a little thought experiment. Thanks, Roger.
My question is that process how we're reacting to climate change? Or is in fact the bridge deck already under pressure? All right, so I guess the content of this was really all about putting people first, because at the end of the day, it's people that are going to make a change, right? I've talked a lot about leadership. I've talked about thought leaders being in this room. So many speakers have said each person can make a difference. So I'm not going to belabor that. I am going to talk for a very short period of time about this competency hierarchy. I think it was Bridget that made a reference to perhaps some consultants being unaware and not caring. Perhaps those, should I say this out loud, people that inhabit the conscious incompetence or the unconscious incompetence. And the people that Bridget really talked about, ours, right? We are definitely at the consciously competent or unconsciously competent stage. I think there's more unconscious competence here. If you get your head around that, unconscious competence, you actually have the right intuition, but you just got to trust it, right? So I don't believe more thinking is going to fix this problem. I believe more action is going to fix this problem. Little review of concrete. I just like the picture, right? It appealed to me because I'm a bit of an engineering geek. Gee, you know, look how much cement there is in terms of volume, but look how much cement there is in carbon. Or carbon in cement, is it? Anyway, either actually carbon out of cement, right? And this one here, this is just, again, another quick example. Concrete industry, actually more carbon emissions than India, not quite as much as United States. We've talked about that a lot. Just a quick recap for you. Carbon reduction potential. Most of the conversations we've had recently have been about building efficiently, building clever. I want to focus a little bit more on the why do we need to build it at all question, because that's where we get the biggest gains. Although because most of us here are programmed as engineers, we just think we're engineers, we build things. That's what we do, right? We go straight to what we know. We create a better mousetrap. Let's think about the future. This is late 19th century. Looks kind of idyllic, right? So anybody in that picture envisage the future that we've got in 2022? I very much doubt it. Who knows which bridge this is? Right, it's Bridge to Nowhere. That was built by hand with concrete. Great example, perhaps, a wonderful engineering structure, but a poor decision. Let's not repeat those things, hey? So let's think about different thinking. there is a bridge made out of wood. That's not Photoshop. Jeremy didn't do that. That's actually a real photograph in Sweden. You know, we talked about how much concrete creates in terms of emissions. We could build wooden bridges, hey? There's another wooden bridge. It's a beautiful structure, right? It looks like it's Photoshop, but it's a glue-line beam. Pretty cool, hey? So we can think differently about these things. I just want to poke a stick in the nest about advanced air mobility. There's been lots of talk about electric vehicles, but no talk about vehicles in the sky. The technology is getting closer and closer that we're going to have real live electric vehicles, artificial intelligence driving them around. That's a pretty cool concept, but this one's real. That's a scale model that's been built. There's people running around taking rides in those things. Now, how cool would it be if electric rotary wings actually replaced a lot of cars? Think about that. We talked about Road to Zero. I'm glad that Ian mentioned the Road to Zero. It's an interesting concept, that's all I'll say. I'm employed by Waka Kotahi. But what a pretty cool shortcut if you don't actually need a road and you don't have operator error putting you at risk. So that's a thought process. We think about sea level rising. In my day job, I just spent the last 2 weeks dealing with a state highway that fell in a river between Takaha and Opotiki, and a whole bunch of people that were stuck. So this is real for me. I'm not a professional speaker. This is my day job, dealing with these things. Can we change our thinking to a shared asset rather than actually owning the asset? So these are all thoughts that I think we can explore and that can be really useful. Question, is this pie in the sky thinking? I mean, that's pie in the sky. I don't know how it's flying, but I don't believe it is. So we want to think about making it real. You know, another great example, I'm just going to touch briefly on, of making it real, is the Asset Management Competency Framework that we're going to look at shortly. But what we need to do, if we know and understand our current skills, and we can find and fill the deficiencies, and we take the time to stop and think and apply what we know to a different paradigm, is that not leadership in action? So let's take the time to stop and think. We've had a couple of days to do that here, and that's one reason why we love these conferences, the time to stop and think. Jeremy, over to you.
Thanks, Roger. So I just want to quickly take you through the Asset Management Competency Framework tool. This is the most recent release that we've added to Reg Insights. And so first of all, just the basics, getting logged in. Who here already has a login to Reg Insights and use it every day? Okay, so there's some that don't. For you, you can now just go to this tool. You just go to the URL and there's a self-registration process. You don't need an email or a link from anyone else. You can just go here and it's the usual process. Put in your password, get a code, register with the code, and then you're in there. Having done that, you'll then be ready to do your first assessment. And when you start your first assessment, it's going to ask you for a few details which are strictly used for analytics, okay? So there's plenty of security around this, and these details are absolutely confidential, and none of the assessments that you do will ever be associated with these details here. So just fill that out, and then you can proceed through to completing your first assessment. So at this point, you're into answering the questions, and I didn't invent these, and I know a number of people spent a good amount of time, so I'll let Roger talk to those.
We're not going to belabor the point. There's 153 questions, there's 8 sections. It's been really, 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 really robustly thought out. Great process, takes you 20 to 30 minutes. It's not even hard.
Sounds like we did our job.
No worries.
So I just want to draw your attention. Oops, but I just want to draw your attention, 20 to 30 minutes, and I know that some of you might get interrupted in the middle of that, so that's no problem. There's a save draft button. So no matter how far you've got through, you can just save draft, come back to it later. When you've got through all the questions, that's when you click the submit button. And when you submitted your first assessment, then you can run this report on your competency. So let's have a look at that. Yeah. So this one is run against the entire sector. And you can see you are in the orangey brown color. In this case, I am in the orangey brown color. And then the blue is the entire sector competency. So you'll see here, I'm really amazing at organizational culture, leadership, and people.
So he told you.
Yeah, there we go. And unfortunately, I'm rather garbage at delivery.
Who would have thought?
So I've got quite a way to go to get any roles in the roading sector.
Hey, Jeremy, lucky public speaking isn't on there because we both have a problem.
Right. Now, that was for entire sector. You can do this drop down and choose a particular role. So if you're interested in moving your skill set for a particular role, go and grab a role there. And then the graph will refresh, showing you your competencies against all of the people in the country who are performing that role. Okay, so you can do a little bit of career planning and stuff like that, and training planning using this tool. On the other side is pretty much the same information, but you've got the candlesticks to show you where the distribution of everyone else in New Zealand on that role is. So that's the tool in a nutshell. Roger, why did we build it?
Jeremy, I think that we built it because it's a great way to make a difference. I'd just like to, whilst I joke with Jeremy, they've done an awesome job building this Company-X. I didn't want this presentation to be a technical one, but that is such a cool piece of kit to play with. It's awesome, hey. Look, we built it because it's going to inform decision-making, really. For an individual, it can inform the decision about your own strengths and weaknesses. Gives you the opportunity to fill some of those out. For an organization, you can build some synergies. You choose to share, you can actually, again, allocate tasks accordingly. For the industry and the sector, and that little spider diagram that shows the whole sector, for me, that's absolute gold in informing better funding and decision-making at a national level. So we have to prove the need for funding. And what really excites me is there are so many thought leaders in this room, but unfortunately, you spend so much of your time doing things that you must do because there isn't the competency around you to do them for you. So if we can free up your time to be true leaders, to be inspirational, to make change, and to drive the response to climate change, that will be fantastic. This little subsection comes under the making it real part by helping us get the right information, the right data, and tell the right story. We can actually make a difference to buy you your time so that we can collectively make a difference. So that's our making it real pitch. I think it's pretty convincing personally. Well, Jeremy, I think we're just about out of time. And for me, we've come to, I think, the best part of the presentation, which is where I stop talking and Jeremy continues.
So first of all, what do we actually want you to do? So we would love you when you get back from conference, so I'm imagining that's Monday morning, I want you to all log into the tool and just do your first assessment. And I know you've been away a couple of days, you'll have a whole stack of emails like this to go to, and you'll have other urgent things that need your attention. But I just ask you to just allow that inconvenient intrusion. You know, like I allowed an inconvenient intrusion in my panic. If you just allow an inconvenient intrusion in your day and just complete your assessment Monday. Now, if everybody in this room can do that, and if you can get all of your colleagues who aren't here to do that, then on Monday afternoon, the spider diagram I'm showing will be actually showing real data for all of this sector. And, if we can do that, then Roger...
We can tell the story, man. We're going to tell that story right up the food chain.
And on the entire sector. So what I'd like to leave you with is this. You're all experts in your field. You have years of experience planning and building civil projects. And, just like that wave that I described for me in the Tuamotu, these are what I want you to ask yourself the question. Are these challenges for you to take? Are you in the right place? And are you the right place, in the right time, the right person to be responding to these challenges? The first easy one is Monday morning, log into the tool and do your assessment. But there are, as discussed in many of the talks, there are lots of, when it comes to the carbon equation, there are lots of challenging waves like this approaching. And the question is, and what I want you to consider is, so for this challenge, whichever one it is, are you the right person in the right place to take that challenge and go? And so, while you're at work, do some surfing, right? Take the challenge and give it a crack. And yeah, that's what I want to leave you with. Perhaps one last thing. I made it to the bottom of that wave and scooted out across that beautiful clear water, and it was a fantastic feeling. So go surfing while you're at work and do the same.
Sure.